Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nickel City X-Wings Inside the Cockpit. I'm your host, Reese, and we're going over Heroic! First off, I just wanted to say thank you to all of our viewers, all the folks who've watched the episode and commented. All of the comments, all of the suggestions and list building from the Proud Tradition, episode 1, has been super helpful. This is how we build an X-Wing community, especially during these times. So let's do a quick overview of Heroic. It's a 1-point elite pilot talent. It's unique only for the Resistance. It affects on both offense and defense. But the key rule aspect is that there needs to be 2 or more dice. So Heroic reads, while you defend or perform an attack, if you have only blank results and have 2 or more results, you may re-roll any number of your dice. And so these include, at the minimum 2 blanks on defense and at minimum 2 blanks on offense. So let's go over some statistical analysis for all your math majors out there. The X-Wing dice has 8 sides. And so for the attack dice, you have 4 hit markers, 3 hits and 1 critical. You have 2 focus markers and 2 blank markers. For the defense dice, you have 3 evade markers, 2 focus, and 3 blanks. In order for you to trigger Heroic on attack dice with a minimum of 2 dice, you take 2/8 times 2/8, or a quarter times a quarter, and that is equal to 6.25%. Now, whenever you add dice, your chances of proccing Heroic decreases exponentially. So for 3 dice, it now becomes a 1.66%, and then for 4 dice, it now becomes a 0.4%. Math is fun, right? For defense dice, for 2 defense dice, you take it as 3/8 times 3/8. So now, in order for you to proc Heroic, it's at 14%. At 3 dice, it becomes 5.27%. And then at 4 dice, it decreases now to about 1.98 or 2%. So we can just see, just straight up, raw, Heroic does favor defense dice over attack dice. So looking at these statistical analysis, I mean, the percentages seem fairly low. But now, how can we add or how can we modify our dice in order to, how do we become more of a hero? More heroicness? Well, it's super easy. 2 characters, Finn and Rose. So for Finn, I'm looking now at the pilot for Finn's pod. And the pilot ability reads for Finn is that while you defend or perform an attack, you may add 1 blank result. Oh, Heroic is just beeping off in my mind. Or you may gain 1 strain token to add 1 focus result. For Gunner, for Finn, it's straight up blanks in a good way. So while you defend or perform a primary attack, if the enemy ship is in your front arc, you may add 1 blank result to your roll. Then this dice can be re-rolled and otherwise modified. Oh no, I'm screaming another hero around me. Heroic again. Now, let's rewind a little bit back into our statistics. So we do know with 2 dice, Heroic procs off at 6.25%. But now with Finn, pilot or gunner, whenever we're adding the extra blank, we can actually use 1 dice as an attack dice. There's no 1 attack dice statistics or one attack dice ship in the game so far. Not even the Hawk. We know that. But in this case, if we just wanted to do 1 dice from the attack, that is a 25% chance of it proccing, and then you just add Finn's blank. For defense dice, now with Finn, it's the same, with 1 dice. Actually, with 1 dice, it's now 3/8, so about 37.5%, and then you add Finn. So it's real easy to use Heroic with defense dice. Now, another member that you can use is Rose as a crew. Now, for Rose's crew's ability, she reads, while you defend or perform an attack, you may spend 1 of your results to acquire a lock on the enemy ship. So now you're eliminating 1 result. So for example, let's say you roll 2 blanks and a focus. I'm going to eliminate that focus. So I'm going to spend that non-blank result, acquire a target lock, and then I'm left with 2 blanks. Really, in this case, rows can only fit on the Star Fortress, but the Star Fortress does not have the EPT slot or the YT1300. The YT1300 does have an EPT slot, or the pod. But in this case, I really want to focus Rose as a crew member on the YT1300. So now we're going to go over the chassis type and see, which ship in the Resistance does Heroic fit on the best. So one formula that I do want us to think about, I call it the Heroic output. This is just a formula that I just came up on my own, and this value is an arbitrary value, but I use it in the fact of, what ships have, really focus on or really have the best chance of proccing off Heroic. I look at the transport pod. It has 2 attack dice and 2 defense dice, 6.25% and 14% for defense. However, the attack pod pilots are named. You have Finn, which is the best pilot for Heroic, adds an extra blank. And then I would recommend BB-8, and then Rose. Now, a lot of people are questioning, well, why Rose? With Rose's ability, you are re-rolling dice whenever ships are in the attack arc or of Rose. So Rose kind of have this innate heroic ability. The next ship I look at is the Fireball, with the 2 attack dice and the 2 defense dice. However, the Fireball, only one pilot really comes to mind, and that's really Jarek Yeager. I know Kaz can also take Heroic as well, but Kaz's ability is really dependent upon how many damage cards she has, and it relates to the initiative of the pilot, or initiative of the enemy, and then how many dice she's rolling. So the Fireball, really, Jarek Yeager is really the best pilot for that. Now we're going to go over, to the T-70. Also, I do want to point out that the T-70, and as well as the transport Coveneel, whenever you execute a red maneuver, procs off in the same statistical analysis. For the T-70, you have 3 attack dice and 2 defense dice, and your heroic output is 15.66%. So 3 attack dice, 1.66, plus 2 defense dice, 14%. For all pilots, I'd recommend all pilots. It's really just based upon play style. For 1 point, Heroic does favor defense dice, especially with 2 defense dice, and we do know that T-70s, just in general, have a high points cost. The Resistance A-Wing, one of the biggest ships in the game right now. Heroic does function and proc off really nicely. However, it is a little bit lower compared to the T-70 because you have the 3 defense dice and the 2 attack dice. The heroic output is around 11.52%. But what makes the A-Wing so great is that it's able to take 2 EPT talents. So in this case, 1 point, slap it on there. It's really that simple. Another kind of point that I do want to point out is that Lulu Lampard, she does shadow a little bit more of the T-70 aspect of the heroic output when you are stressed. So that's another pilot to really think about. But I recommend heroic on all A-Wings, just because that's second EPT slot, except for the recruit, of course. But for 1 point, you really can't beat it. And then last but not least is the YT1300. In this case, you have the 3 attack dice, which is 1.66%, and then you have the 1 defense dice, which is 25% of proccing off heroic. When you add those 2 together, you get 26.66%. But asterisk that, there's something really that you really need to include in this, and I really highly recommend that you need to include Finn with heroic with the YT1300. So Finn helps on both the defense and then the offense. But in this case, Finn really helps the defense for the YT1300 in triggering heroic. And then Rose as a crew is a great asset as well. You can spend that result and you can add or modify and really focus on triggering the heroic. The MG Star Fortress does not have an EPT talent, and then the transport pods, other than Coveneel, does not trigger heroic on both on offense or defense. So in conclusion, I know this episode has been very math heavy. I mean, math blaster heavy. Star Wars blaster. You got it. Heroic favors defense dice over attack dice. The heroic, they want, the minimum dice required. So it wants those 2 defense dice, wants those 2 attack dice. Finn, as a crew and as a pilot, enhances heroic on both offense and defense. Rose, as a crew, enhances heroic just on offense. It sets you up really well for next turn with a target lock. But also what makes heroic awesome is that it's only 1 point, and it's flexible in both offense and defense. Out of the other 1 point upgrades, we have crack shot, marksmanship, and composure. Heroic, you just have to be on the board, and you just have to roll the dice, and you just have to roll the minimum 2 dice to have it proc. So other than that, it's a great EPT. It makes the resistance, really, possibly the true heroes. It also makes Finn to be the ultimate hero in Star Wars, right? Yeah, I guess I can think about that maybe. But thank you so much for tuning in. Comment below on what you want me to go over next. Definitely add your suggestions. This is what builds an X-Wing community. If you have any more new ideas about how to use heroic. And thank you so much. So this has been another episode of Inside the Cockpit. Now get off my plane.